Tonight, I'm joined by Tango, a federal government employee who has chosen to remain anonymous due to the stigma surrounding Sasquatch encounters. He shares years of intense activity across Missouri and Arkansas, including powerful wood knocks, trees being pushed over, unexplained animal mutilations, strange tracks, and repeated close encounters involving his wife and son. Tango describes being stalked while hunting, hearing chilling dual-tone vocalizations, witnessing massive Sasquatch crossing roads both on all fours and upright, and experiencing continued activity around his home, including eye shine, owl mimicry, and physical interactions with his house. He has conducted field research alongside experienced investigators using thermal devices, call blasting, and believes these creatures are intelligent, territorial, and far more aware of us than most people realize. This is Sasquatch Theory, and this is one of the most compelling first-hand accounts you'll ever hear. If you enjoy listening to Sasquatch Theory, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and be sure to comment down below. Of course, if you want to purchase some merchandise to help support the channel, you can do so on my Spreadshirt website. With all that being said, let's dive straight into Tango's Bigfoot encounters from the Ozarks. Tango, welcome to Sasquatch Theory. How are you doing today?
Great. How's it going, Miguel?
It's going very well. Thank you so much for asking. Tango, if you would, tell me a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and your Bigfoot encounters and experiences from the very beginning, please.
Yes, sir. Well, my younger years, I was an avid bow hunter, and I spent a lot of time outdoors. A lot of, mapping out farms, scent-free hunting. I actually had a clothesline on a roller, on pulleys, where I would hang out my hunting clothes. And I was into bow hunting. And I never subscribed to the idea that Missouri was crawling with Bigfoot or anything like that. I tend to lean more towards some of the Native American accounts in the Pacific Northwest up into British Columbia. And I held more value in what they were saying than, oh, so-and-so saw a Bigfoot. And I thought, being from Missouri, I thought, well, maybe they saw a black bear. There are black bears in parts of Missouri. And so I kind of hung on to that for a really long time. I knew about the Momo stories and all of that. I just never really paid much attention to it. And I was hunting, we'll say south of the Lake of the Ozarks, on my old in-laws farm. And I had heard rumors about, them finding tracks and, chasing down blood trails, chasing down deer that they had killed. And then they find these tracks and deer end up missing. Some people got ridiculed and this and that. And my former father-in-law, always, you got a pistol on you? You got a pistol on you? Yeah. Every time I went bow hunting out there, I had a pistol on me. And because, there are bear and mountain lions run. And I had, one of the first things that really kind of made my eyes twitch is I was sitting at a stand in one of the gnarliest spots on that farm, 500-acre farm. And it's thick and brushy. But there, maybe 30 yards behind me, there was a field that didn't have any cattle in it, no horses. And I heard something walking up the hill. I could kind of hear the footfalls, but I could hear the breathing, but I knew instantly this thing had lungs like a horse. It had a set of lungs, and it was, breathing heavily, and it passed behind me, but it paused when it got right to my 6 o'clock. Wind was in my face. Bow hunter is always hunting the wind. I had the wind right in my face and blowing my scent, and it stopped for a second. It kept walking. And I didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it, but it was spooky. And then I'd heard things. I heard an uncle had seen something on that farm, and he never hunted there again. But water under the bridge. Years later, we had killing my buddy's calves. 6 calves were killed. One of them was pulled from one farm. It was a yellow tag. Quarter mile from one farm onto another farm using the creeks, on a green tag farm. And so that was pretty peculiar. A lot of these calves were pulled up underneath cedars. They were opened up, and their intestines were strewn out to the side, and their soft tissue were gone. The heart, liver, kidneys were gone, and they were just pulled up under cedars and kind of covered up. It was a mountain lion. We dealt with conservation agents out here. No, there's no, we sometimes we have an occasional male from the Dakotas come through, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, there's cub tracks down by the creek. Oh, no, blah, blah, blah. We showed them a couple of tracks, and they covered them up with 5-gallon buckets, and the place was crawling with agents later. They're setting up tripwires and stuff. I'm like, dude, they're using the creeks. So at the end of it, they granted us permission. It was a nuisance cat, and you guys can kill it. I never did, but I hunted the cats. I went into some of the areas, and I took my stepson with me. He went on to become a combat Marine, join the Army, and he was a pretty squared away kid. And we're setting up in a tree stand. I put on the back of a creek bank, so if anything snuck up behind us, it had to jump 20 feet to get to us. And we had pistols and rifles on us, and I'd set up an electronic call and see if these cats would come in near the calves where they were keeping the calves. And one night we hear a bunch of coyotes coming in from one of the pastures behind us. We hear yip, 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 yip. Here they come. They're coming in the tree line. And my stepson at the time would get $25 a head for every coyote killed on this property. So I'm like, get your gun up, get ready. They're coming. Well, as the coyotes entered the tree line that we were in from behind us, we hear this huge growl, just this big guttural growl. And way the crow flies, maybe 5 miles away from us, there was an old like animal sanctuary where they would have mountain lions or something. And my first thought was maybe one of those big cats escaped from there. Because I wasn't expecting it, but I heard a big growl that kind of comes into play later. And I shook it off, and I got down out of the tree stand first. I set security. We moved, and we hauled our butts out of that field, crossed the gate, and got back to the truck. And still nothing. A little bit later, I was solo hunting on another piece of property for this cat. It's a huge wildlife corridor just right down the road from me, and it was back behind my buddy's place. And he's got a pond back there and these ravines where deer were running through. We were finding deer carcasses and weird things. We were finding deer carcasses with with spiral fractures on the back legs and the heads caved in, but they were clean. The deer carcasses were completely clean, no meat on them at all, but their heads are caved in. I'm thinking, did this cat come down here and crush their head and like surgically remove all the meat? No. Again, water under the bridge. I sat down in this little ravine that I called a deer superhighway and set up an electronic call about 30 yards from me down the ravine. And I leaned up. I had shooting sticks in my backpack and this ruck, and no cat's going to sneak up behind me, grab me by the back of the neck. And I had a carbine and one reload. I had a pistol and one reload. We were told we could kill these cats by any means necessary. So I set up and listening to an electronic call for hours, and finally I'm sitting around and I hear crack, 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 whoosh. A branch hit. Probably about my 2 o'clock. I couldn't see anything, and then maybe at my 8 o'clock I hear the same thing: crack, crunch, 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 just popping, through the woods at night, all by myself. And I heard like a small grunt, and I'm like, it is time to go. I had a carabiner on my electronic call. I ran down, grabbed it, hooked it on the strap to my ruck, and I proceeded to back up out of this ravine. Well, I'm getting paced. As you take a few steps, and you stop, and you hear something stops with you. I'm getting paced coming up out of there, and I'm just trying to haul butt up out of this ravine and get back up to a trail. I get up to the trail, and so now I've got one on my 3 o'clock and one on my 6 o'clock. One something. I thought it was people screwing with me. And I've got all this gear on, and there is a pond, a small lake to my right, and I don't feel like swimming with all this crap on. And I have to move forward. Well, I hear something in front of me. I'm surrounded by 3 of these things at night. And I have to make it maybe 50 yards down this trail so I can turn right, and I can just back out all the way. I've got a 10-minute walk back to my truck, and I can barely see their dusk to dawn light, where my truck is parked by. And so if I can make it up to the end of this trail and turn right, I can turn around backwards and have all these three things, basically in the same area. I can keep my rifle. I had lights on my gear, and I figure I could keep them in a central location, keep them from flanking me, because I don't like being flanked. I back out, and I make it without incident. And I thought it was people screwing with me, people from an adjacent farm or something. And I was kind of freaked out that night. And my son was really young at the time, and no big deal. The cat stopped coming around. I never shot the cat. I suspect other people did. I don't know if they had collars on them or anything. I don't know if they kept it hush hush, but stopped. Now I had seen mountain lions on my property 3 times. I had an awesome red nose pit bull everywhere with my son. He got in between that cat and my son 2 times, and I saw the cat once in my backyard. Burning leaves. Late at night, and so I knew there were mountain lions running around out here. So years later, a lot of that calmed down. People would have cat sightings from here and there, and I ended up meeting my wife, my current wife. My son's mom and I had split, and I'm with my current wife. Well, she's from Arkansas. We went camping in the Ouachita Mountains, and one night we were in a popular fishing spot, and there was probably 20 campsites occupied where we were at, and we were all camping. And I guess it was about 3 a.m. And I hear this really long, drawn out howl. It kind of like a drawn out whoop, but two-tone. And it lit up the area. Whatever it was had to be within 100, 150 yards of us. And I got up out of bed, grabbed my shotgun, and kicked up the fire. And I was up until daylight. I heard this huge. Well, the Bigfoot subject is pretty popular down in parts of Arkansas as well. People talk about it freely. I don't talk about it freely. I want to remain anonymous. I don't want my name or face attached to it. I still work for the federal government doing nerd stuff. Nothing, no 007 stuff or anything. But I don't want to, I don't want this to reflect upon my department. So, anyways, I hear this call down there, and I'm thinking, man, what is going on? But I'll never forget that call. And I guess it was the same year in the fall. My son was at his mother's house. My wife was with me on a quad, and my stepson was on another quad. And we'd like to drive down the road about a mile away and just park on the side of the road and listen to wildlife. Watch foxes jumping through the fields. Watch whatever comes out in the fields. Listening to owls. There's great-barred owls out here like crazy. We'll do owl calls, and we call it an owl dating service because sometimes we'll have like 7 great-barred owls up in the trees around us. We're just calling them in. Ooh, woof, 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 woof. Just having fun and playing around. So we sit out there and we like to listen to the woods. And, foxes making noises. Foxes can make some crazy noises that'll make the hair stand up on the back of your skin or back of your neck. But we're sitting out there, and there's a lady on a farm that's always running a side-by-side around. And she brings her trash up to a dumpster on this part of the road. And it seems like sometimes she's a little bit inebriated. So, we had a few things to say about that, in a teasing manner. But we saw the lights from that side-by-side probably a half a mile away in one of their fields. And we just saw the lights. We thought, oh, that lady's over there riding her buggy around. Within a few seconds, we just hear snap, crack, crunch, crush. Just the brush is just being torn down through this tree line coming from that field onto the road. Well, from the shoulder, this thing jumped. It was on all fours, jumped off of its back legs from the shoulder, and its hands hit probably in the middle or past the middle of the road. Back feet caught up, and it just launched itself across the road, and it tears through the brush. Just snap, crack, crunch. I think you said something like a truck in neutral just tearing through the woods. And that's what it sounded like. This thing covered probably 70, 80 yards in seconds. It would have taken you and me 20 minutes to negotiate all that brush. It was, and we saw it's the top of its back would have probably been almost up to my chest. It was big. I did not see a snout. I did not see a tail. It was muscular and it was lean. And you could see a little bit of hair on its back, tuft of hair. Not quite a mane, but something that kind of resembles that. And this thing just tears through the brush. Well, my stepson pulls the quad up next to me, and it's time to go. Everybody is WTF. What was that? Like, and I'm trying to produce a pistol and a flashlight at the same time, and run a quad. And my stepson didn't. No one wanted to be in the back, so he paralleled me all the way home. We took up the whole road. The problem is that power line cut runs towards the back of our place, in thick brush. We made it home, and we're like, what in the hell was that? Whatever it is, it's big and it's out here and it's in these woods. And I'm like, man, with not only having mountain lions out here and now something like that, I'm afraid to go outside without at least something on me, and a flashlight, a bright flashlight, which turned out to be one of my best tools. So then I started thinking, I'm like, okay, what all is running around out here? And I had tracked all over the place, and I'd covered maybe 1,500 acres out here. And within a few weeks, I was heading to work one morning, and I come around the corner. I'm running a little bit late. I'm kind of cruising down the road, and I catch something that looks similar on two legs crossing the road. And this guy was having a bad hair day. But broad shoulders, really thick, from his chest to his mid back. He was really thick. He was more of a like khaki and grayish color. He wasn't, the dark black or brown that you would expect to see. And I'm going, whoa! He crosses the road really quick, and his foot had actually hit the ridge of gravel. Every time they come out and plow in the winter, we end up with a ridge of gravel on each side of the road, right? Well, as soon as I got off of work that day, I grabbed my son and my stepson, and we go down and we start tracking. We found a track where he had stepped on that. And he probably sunk in about an inch or so into that gravel mound. And what do you know? I could see a mid-tarsal bend in this thing's foot. His foot bent like ours didn't. And whoa. So, hey, this is where we enter the woods, boys. And we go in. And we're snooping around. We found that track, and we just walked around snooping. We're following a creek back to a bigger creek. I don't want to say the name of it, but we would go down to this creek often. It didn't really find too much. I'd been, after some of the incidents, I'd been crawling all over the internet looking for any information I could get on stick structures, calls, howls, blah, blah, blah. And anyways, we got out. As we were coming back out, two trees were pushed down on both sides of the creek where we had entered. And I'm going, whoa, 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 stop, stop, stop. So we started peeling back leaves at the base of each of those trees and around them, kind of circular. And we found impressions, decent sized footprints, 7, 8 inches wide. They weren't, they not good impressions. It's nothing you would cast. By the way, I've never casted anything because I don't want that crap laying around the house, and I don't care. I've told you before, I don't care about presenting evidence to anyone. They can go find their own. And that may sound selfish or cynical, but I don't owe anybody any evidence. And I've shared with friends. I help people out, but I've seen old ladies post stuff in Facebook groups, and they finally found a stick structure, and they're so proud, and then people just demonize her and crawl all over her. And I try to stick up for people like that, but I feel bad, and I've dealt with plenty of the ridicule myself. Freaking out and going to old hunting buddies and people that I trusted, and I expected more out of you, and this and that. Almost got into fistfights with people. I got tired of the ridicule, and that was just enough for me. So screw the cryptid community. I think too much about it, but I did end up, I started listening to podcasts from Tim Kuhnbo Baker when he was with the Bigfoot Outlaws, and I joined their Facebook group, the Bigfoot Outlaws Hideout, and got a lot of really good information. I'm sure I asked a lot of stupid questions and whatnot, but I ended up kind of hitting it off with Tim Baker, and I learned a lot. He actually coached me up and helped me out. Anyways, after some of these incidents, I came home one night, and I was on my back. There is no way that there are Bigfoot in this area. I just couldn't bite down on it. So I'm standing on my back deck. I had a couple of bourbons, and I mimicked the call that I heard from Arkansas. One call. I mimicked one call as loud as I could muster up. I got a response from behind me across the road in the brush. No way. No way. I couldn't believe it. I mean, it just blew my mind. Next thing I know, about 60 yards in the brush, maybe 70, 80 yards in the brush behind our house, two decent sized oak trees got pushed over, maybe 8, 10 inches around. They got pushed down. They're right next to each other. And I would start going out at night, and I had a spotlight or bright light, Surefires, a streamlight, bright, tactical flashlights. And I would light up the area because I was starting to get freaked out, letting my dogs out or going to get firewood at night. And the kids were freaked out too. So I would shine this around, and sometimes I would find eye shine in these two trees that were pushed down, staring at us. There'd be one in each. You, me, and two other guys could sit in each one of those trees. They'd cleared out enough brush. You could just sit down in there, and they basically had a hunting blind to do pull recon on us. And at times, they would just turn and bolt or crawl backwards up the hill, like this. They talk about the Spider-Man crawl. They would just bolt. And I'm like, geez, these things are right here. They're this close. And, I would do owl calls with the boys. Hey, I'm headed down to the creek. When you guys grab your gear or whatever, meet me down there. And, if they would come down looking for me, they would do an owl call. Just, whoo, and I would answer them back. Well, those things picked up on our owl calls and would mimic them. One night, I didn't do anything to initiate. I came outside. I had a scoped rifle on me, and one of those things did the owl call down by that creek. And I just bolted down there so I could get a glimpse at whatever. And I'm trying to, run through the scope, and I couldn't see anything. Well, I slowly started walking back, up our trails. We have trails all around our property for training, for riding quads and everything else. So I started walking back up the trail. No, that time I did not have a rifle on me. I didn't. I had a pistol on me. And as I come around the corner, excuse me, up towards the house, looking inside the tree line that skirts around our backyard, I see one of these things. It's small and skinny, big round head. It's height. It's just squatted, flat-footed, just squatted down, arms to its side, behind a small cedar tree. And my first thought was, this thing wants me to see it. You're not hiding from anybody, buddy. And I produce a pistol. I hold it at a low ready or a Sul, and I didn't point it at it, but I just tried to skirt around this thing, maybe 25 yards out. I start skirting around it so I can get closer to the house. It was in between me and the house. I did not like that. And it never moved. I kind of would almost raise my pistol a little bit, like, okay, this thing's not going to move. I've got a 9mm with 124 grain plus speed jacketed hollow points, and I don't think it's enough. But I will empty this mag and pull a reload if I have to. I've got 25 yards to dump a mag in this thing if it bolts after me. These are my thoughts. I skirt around. It never moved. As I move around, it never turned. This thing maintained unbelievable discipline. I get past it. I come in the house and I'm hollering for my wife, like, babe, come check this out. And she breaks my attention. I look and it's gone. Like, whoa, like, no, I saw it. It was right there. Blah, 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 blah. Well, later on, my wife had plenty of experiences. But, this was just the beginning. Another night that really stands out is I had let my wife had two little crazy wiener dogs that would start a fight with anything. And I had my red-nosed pit bull, who was a good dog. He was just a big sweetheart. Well, I had let them out at night, but the wiener dogs wouldn't come off the deck. They were at the back door going, scratching at the door, wanting in the sliding glass door. Well, my red nose had gone down to do his business in his little spot, and then he comes bolting out of there past me, and I'm going, whoa. At this point, I bought a 10mm, and I would usually carry a 10mm with 15 rounds in it, one in the pipe, and 2 reloads, 46 rounds. And bright flashlight. So I immediately whip out my light and go, from a Harry's method, with a light underneath your pistol, and I start painting the woods. As I'm painting the woods, I come over to my right at about my 3-4 o'clock. There's a big oak tree, maybe 16 inches around, and I see eye shine on the sides of it. The eyes were kind of diagonal, but I thought it was maybe a couple of raccoons up in the tree, and I'm trying to get a clear picture of what's going on, and I see the shoulders of this thing on both sides of the tree. I mean, this thing was built like a piece of plywood, barrel-chested, huge shoulders, like basketballs. The head is sunken a little bit lower than ours. The chin is kind of down in their chest. Huge, tremendous traps. This thing was big. It raised its arm, and I hear, whoa, and that reverberated through my chest. That just a grunt. But he covered up his eyes, and I hear, boom, 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 boom. These heavy footfalls cutting through, and then I hear nothing. I'm backing up. I'm backing up, trying to get in the house. And letting the dogs in. They're frantically trying to get in the house. I let the dogs in, and I'm telling my wife about it. And I looked down. I had pissed my pants. There was a line of piss across my jeans. This thing was so damn big. I was terrified to go out for the rest of the night. But the next day, I went out and took measurements, and this thing had to have been around 8 foot tall, and it had an 18-inch track. That comes in later. I've got decent pictures of that track. I may have sent it to you. I don't know, but this thing had an 18-inch track, and we nicknamed him Big Daddy. We thought he was the alpha of this family troop or family unit, and I was pretty freaked out at that point. That thing was big, and I was within 30 yards of it, and whoa, that was crazy. Well, we ended up nicknaming him Big Daddy, and there were 2 juveniles that would come around, and they were the ones that would cause havoc all the time. And then there was one we would call Muscle Man, the one I had seen crossing the road. This thing, he was obviously a beta male, maybe 7.5 feet tall, maybe a 16-inch track. He had abs. You could see abs and like kind of patches on his stomach in places where you could see a little bit of skin, but his obliques and abs were ripped. I mean, this guy was built, and huge quads, but he was smaller. We knew Big Daddy would beat this guy down. So we had Muscle Man, these 2 younger juveniles that both looked the same, one a little bit bigger than the other. But I had found tracks of smaller ones, and we knew that there was a mother in the bunch. I had never seen anything that I could distinctly identify as a female. So we're dealing with a family unit, at least 6. Now I think probably closer to 8. Anyways, we're dealing with a family unit, and I'd been chatting and cutting up and goofing around online with Kumbo Baker for a while. Come to find out, I met him in LBL, and we hit it off. And we're goofing around. Actually, there were some stories floating around about that trip in LBL where Kumbo had a power cord to his generator off of a 75-foot cord that he would always put in the woods to power his camper, and it was ripped out of his camper. I mean, this thing is bolted in on lugs. It was ripped out. They had unscrewed the cap trying to turn it off, because every time he would fill it up, he would turn it off, unscrew the cap, put gas in it, put the cap back on, and fire it up. Well, they had unscrewed the caps. They're intelligent enough to figure that out, and then they ripped the power cord out, but the generator was still running. But that same night, I was tent camping with my wife, and there in LBL at our campsite, it had rained a little bit, and there's a lot of wind coming off of Kentucky Lake. So I put up a tarp kind of diagonal to block the rain and wind off of our tent. Well, a huge hand reached up under the tent, pressed into it, and wrapped my wife's head. This whole hand wrapped my wife's head, and she's kind of freaking out. I mean, obviously, but I could see the hand kind of, it grabbed her and like, whoa, I shouldn't have done that. And then it kind of just paused at the tent as it walks past. My wife's like, that's enough. All right, we had to break camp in the middle of the night. Understandably, I wasn't happy at the time, but understandably, we broke camp. Well, anyways, Tim and I had kind of hit it off face to face, and he lived a little north of me. Not a huge drive, but we thought, all right, let's go out and get into something. So I met him at a location. He took me to all kinds of places right up under my nose throughout Missouri while he was living in the state of Missouri. And took me some cool spots. One of the first places he took me, he had a thermal. I had an NV scope with zoom, and I could record. And he took me to this really isolated spot out in the middle of nowhere. And we got set up, and I was really freaked out at the time. And I remember before I got out of the truck, I said, dude, I know you can call these things in. I've heard the stories. And I said, if anything tries to grab you or me, I'm going to shoot it right in the face. And he goes, okay, grab your gear. And and we go out. He had a megaphone that his I think his great aunt had from 1930s. It was a megaphone, with no electronics, just basically a handle and a cone. And he did a regular call, similar to a drawn out whoop. I try not to share too many calls. I don't want kids to go out and get themselves hurt or in trouble. But yeah, a two-tone drawn out whoop. He did another call, and then he did what we would call an alpha male call, with all in the span of a few minutes. And after he did the alpha male call, he started getting hot spots on thermal, and I started getting eye shine on NV. These things had crawled out into a field on all fours, and maybe halfway down a hill, maybe 2/3 the way down a hill, kind of in a bottom of this field. And we could see their heads and shoulders, sticking up through, all the brush in the field. And, and they had their eyes on us. They were looking at us. And I had it lit up with an infrared illuminator, and I was recording. It's the world's worst Bigfoot video ever. That's why I never posted it. I would have had 10,000 people jump on it and say, fake, oh, that's fake, oh, you suck. But he goes, light them up. So we pull out lights. They get up to a fence. We think they're going to cross the road or come our direction or whatever. He goes, light them up. So we pull out bright flashlights. You can see my camera shaking all over the place. And as soon as we light them up, they bolt and just take off on all fours, and they exit the way they came. They're gone in seconds. He goes, grab your gear. We got to go. I'm like, dude, we're going down there? Are you serious? He drives down there, and it is a narrow dirt road. And he had a heck of a time. He had a Tundra at the time, this awesome limited Tundra. And he gets it turned around, and we come up to the spot where they were. That grass was above my waistline. Their shoulders, their heads would have been probably mid-chest on me. And two of them had come out. I'm like, whoa. He took me to another spot, and is across from an old quarry. If he hears this, he'll remember that night. Across from an old quarry, and one just kind of popped up on the hill. Like Spider-Man crawled 50, 60 yards away from us. It eventually moved sideways, like it was, skirting around us. We're watching this thing the whole time, and we're not projecting any lights or anything on it, so it's still staring at us. Well, it jumps up and gets behind this tree, and you can see the eye shine up through the tree branches. And another one joins it that was bigger from behind. So we're looking at two of these things. We kind of hang out. They end up moseying on, and we get in the truck and take off. And I think I recorded a call at a pretty popular lake in this area late that night. So like, whoa, you mean I can do this in my own area? This this guy knows this much about my own area. I've been screwing around with this family of them, messing with me, and like, whoa. So these things are in Missouri. Now I'm hook, line, and sinker. I'm sold. These things are in the area. Now I started, taking trips and going to LBL, and Kumbo was dragging me. We went to several states, and it had quite a few encounters. He was coaching me up, do this, do that, maybe you can take some Irish soap or Irish Spring soap and rub it on fence posts. They hate that smell, and this and that. Giving me little tips. Keep lights on. And my wife started taking, just little solar lights and placing them around our tree line and around certain trees, so nothing could really hide around the trees at night. So, we had a good view of our perimeter. It was nice. So, I picked up a lot of things, but my kids, our kids were still scared. I had to be outside with some serious hardware in order to, with lights, and provide overwatch if they're getting firewood, or if we're letting the dogs out, things like that. And I after a while, I started to realize that most of the time when I shined a bright light on them, they were taking off or running away, but they were still pretty bold. My next door neighbor, through the woods, maybe 150 yards. This time of year, you can't really see them, from all the foliage. But my next door neighbor, he really cool guy. He's always outside cooking, and he's had a Bluetooth speaker up in the trees sometimes, playing his Chris Stapleton and all that, and cooking out. And he said, "Hey man, those things are messing with me. Get your boomstick and get over here." So I hop on a quad, and I'd go over there, and I'm like, "What's going on?" He's like, "They're breaking trees. They're breaking trees." And one night he was out there by himself. Well, I'm like, "Cut your music. Cut the music. Cut the music." Crack, crunch, 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 boom. That tree was on my side of the property line. I just pull out the 10 mil, boom, right into a bank. I wasn't shooting at him or anything. Show was over for the night. He continued cooking. His wife was teleworking from home, and everybody came out, and party on. There we go. No big deal. So I started hiking around behind my property, where we would hear a little bit of activity and hear movement. I would sit out there at night, sometimes just listening. Well, I think I mentioned this to you before. There was a nest. There was at least, it was like a big oval nest of cedars and brush and everything that was kind of piled up. And then in a lot of these places where they moved on all fours, you would see what resembled a hog trail. You know how hogs will tear through brush, and they'll have these trails, they'll tear through cedars, and you can tell, kind of like in the old cartoons, the mouse hole on the side of the wall, where the mouse would hide. Kind of these hog trails that were running through. Well, there was one hog trail going into this, we called it a nest. It was at least 12 feet wide on the inside, an oval shape, to be a nursery. Like, mama can sit in front of the entrance, and the babies have to stay inside there. That's what we glyphs on the ground that resemble an asterisk. We find broken and woven through other trees, and big. When I'd first gotten into this on one property, we found a big X with logs, maybe place an X on our property. Well, me taking offense to it, towards any threat, I tore down the X, and we were peeing around our property line, marking our territory. And people were like, "Hey, dummy, that X is for them, not you." I'm like, "Oh, whoop." So I'm kind of learning. And our kids are into every sport you can think of. I would take the kids to rest, and come home. My wife would say, "There's something came and hit the side of the house." Blinds. They're looking through the kitchen window. They're looking sliding glass door out back. They were set up for it. My wife is getting messed with a little bit. My stepson would come night from work at 11:30 midnight, and he'd be hauling stuff out of his truck. Something would hit our shed and take off, and he's coming in freaked out, and the kids are getting their cons out and propping them up, things like that. I'd come home when they were home alone, and they're stacked up in the hallway with shotguns. And one night at night, I'm sleeping in my bed, with my wife, and boom, right behind my head where I was sleeping, they hit the wall, and you could hear his hand just scraping along the side of the house. And they were getting pretty bold. And we would go outside and do a cookout and hear crack, crunch, shadoom. They'd break a branch or something. And I started telling the boys, go get your shotguns. And I've got a gallery, gong range, shooting gongs in my backyard. Get your shotguns, light them up. Boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. It's alone. When my wife got messed with, I'm like, babe, walk out there with this shotgun and act like it's yours. Empty it and walk back in the house with it. I was there with her. But she tried to hand that. She goes out, unloads the shotgun, and tries to hand it to me. I said, "No, that's yours. You have to make a statement." And so she did. And when we would go outside and shoot or carry on, they would leave us alone. Now, I have a lot of people that come over here and train, military, law enforcement, certain agents. and they shoot with us. I have trails that we run. People do the Murph challenge. We used to train for endurance courses, all this crap. So I have people that come over and train and shoot. Usually you don't have many issues. But my son had a hookup for fireworks, and he got those long, maybe 18-inch mortar tubes, with the really long fuse on them, and he would launch them off of his knee up into the try to get above the canopy of trees, and let them detonate over their position, and those things would leave us alone for the night. And it got to where I'm like, no. Once I realized that um, they weren't being that aggressive. I mean, they scared the crap out of us, being that big. And at first, what do when we perceive something as a threat? We buck up and we prepare. And I realized, hey, they haven't hurt our dogs, our cats. They don't mess with our chickens. They haven't hurt our kids. They'll scare the crap out of us. But we've kind of established boundaries with these things. And well, Tim told me, like, dude, be nice. Watch your body language. Only project positive body language. Talk to him. He goes, just go out and talk to him. I'm like, you want me to go talk to Bigfoot? So are you serious? Yeah, be positive. Tell him not to scare your family. Tell him not to scare your dogs. Well, I did. I walked out to the tree without anything in my hands. Usually, if we had long guns on us, we weren't going to see much. We weren't going to deal with much. But we always concealed carried pistols, or our boys would open carry, outside the waistband, OWB holsters, things like that, because they couldn't legally carry concealed. But we always kept pistols on us, and after being so terrified, I wouldn't go check the mail without at least having a pistol on me, or let my dogs out or anything. So I started talking to him and just kind of being nice, and we would have a sighting here and there, and I think I told you we had, inside the tree line behind our place, we had a, a shagbark hickory, a big shagbark hickory that was kind of V-shaped, and another big hickory, they're probably 16 inches around, fell into the V of it, so you could walk up on it. And those things would always seem to be hiding around it, or having something to do with it. And I would set out, like, we process all of our own wild game, and I would set out a deer liver, or a kidney, or something like that. And I would do a little whoop, whoop, and they would come and take that in no time. They knew it was me. They knew where I was, and it wasn't, the meat wasn't drug off or anything. I am totally against habituating them or getting them used to feed in any way whatsoever. But I would give them a little gift once in a while. Um, some people had suggested taking a twist of natural tobacco and hanging it up when you go on your way in. Sometimes we would enter the woods in some locations, and we would have to, be real quiet and listen, but we would hear a tree knock. Like, wait, you got to listen. It may take a while, but the next one's going to respond. Maybe sometimes 45 seconds later. And so I never got into doing tree knocks, because they did tree knocks when we entered the woods. And so, okay, again, a huge learning curve. We're picking all this up, figuring things out. And at one point, years kind of go by, and things had calmed down, but we stopped noticing him that much. They weren't here. It seemed like sometimes there'd be a routine. Every 2 or 3 weeks they would show up. I ended up tracking, neighbors were having issues and stuff. I don't mind helping people with this. I prefer to remain anonymous. And we helped some people that were having some issues, missing feed, missing dog food. They're going through 350-pound bags of dog food in a week, and their dog's getting skinny. Dude, put your dog food up, lock it up. Don't leave your deer hanging outside, overnight. Put them in a shed, put them in something. Your sweet feed's missing. Put it all in the barn. Learn to deter them. Put up lights. Every night to this day, the back and the front of our house is lit up. I don't run a dusted on night, because if I want it dark, I can have it dark. But we have lights up every single night, and I didn't mind helping folks around here, and kind of get people up to speed on what was going on, and people that had seen them or dealt with stuff. I mean, no ridicule. We were good. But it seemed like this family unit had been pushed out. And one of my wife's little wiener dogs had come up missing. He was gone for 3 weeks, and somehow, I don't know how, that dog survived. The little bitty wiener dog, mean as hell, ornery as can be. But he was a good house alarm. Anytime those things would come around, the dogs, even the pit bull, they would go hide in our walk-in closet. They wanted nothing to do with it. But then my red-nosed pit, a lot of times he would run right back to where that nest was. We He passed away last summer at 12. But we think that that dog somehow made friends with some of those, but others scared him. That's the best we can guess. But anyways, this wiener dog came up missing, and I was going out back and I was putting up my shirts and calling for him. I put up my shirts so the dog could smell my scent and come home. And sitting out back, no, not sitting out back. My son and I went down to like put a t-shirt out or check the trails. I would sit out at night in some of these corners and listen. One night when the old family was here, I'm kind of jumping around, but one night when the old family was here, I was sitting out um, on the ravine out back. Listen, I thought I heard dogs out at the distance, in the distance, but there are no dogs and no houses in that area. I was hearing woo, 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 but as they get closer, that sound became a little clearer. And I'm sitting there, and these noises start to approach, and I'm hearing this deer. It sounded like a deer running through the woods, and then I'm hearing woo on one side of the ravine, woo whoop on the other side of the ravine, woo whoop whoop, and they're all, like three of them are pushing this deer. Whoa! I'm backing out. I'm done. I don't want to interfere with their hunt. I'm backing out. So I did. Well, when the dog was missing, my son and I decided to take a little walk in the dark. We both had pistols on us, and we cut down through a little area, and we're getting ready to take a left onto one of our main trails, and we start hearing a bunch of brush snap, and we're seeing the tops of the trees. We start lighting up the area with our bright lights, and we're seeing this brush move, and it's something big in there, and we know what we're dealing with at this point. And the brush is moving, and we feel threatened. There may have been a grunt or something and some snaps, but usually if we're stacking up, especially in training, my son will put his hand on my shoulder and he's pushing in because he's always number two. Dad goes in first. He grabbed my shoulder and was pulling me back, and then we started getting flanked from our left side. So we had one in front of us, and something else is flanking us. We did not like that at all. My son is cussing up a storm, and he's like, "We're backing out. We're backing out. We're backing out." So we back out at 150 yards away from whatever that was. My wife was asleep in our bedroom. My son walks into our bedroom, turns the lights on, beep 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 beep, clunk, and starts pulling stuff out of the gun safe. He's like, "I'm not sleeping in my room tonight, Dad. We're sleeping." We had a sectional couch. We're sleeping head to head, and of course he gives himself all the good guns, and he get two big guns for himself. One of them's a combat shotgun loaded with double aught and slugs. He gives me another one loaded with double aught and slugs and a rifle, and we slept head to head on the couch that night. And these things were a little more aggressive. I told you I had some issues with the type 3s, the gugwe. The initial family we were dealing with were the type 2s, more primate looking. They didn't look like the type 1s from, up north, the bigger ones with the sagittal crest, the pointy heads and more human-like facial structure, really tall, big, like the deer. The further you get north in the country, the bigger the deer get. And I can assume that it's the same with these things. I didn't deal with the type 1s, the bigger ones, the more shorter, aggressive type 2s, the more primate, rounded heads, flat nose, same type of mouth, skinny lips, big jaw set lower on their shoulders than us. And I'd never seen one stand up totally straight. They were always slumped forward. Their arms were a little bit longer, closer to their knees than us. And I never saw one with a really straight posture, walking bipedally. But this next group, I think, had pushed out the old family, the gugwe or the type 3s that have a more pronounced snout, maybe like a hyena. But these things had three-toed tracks, and it blew my mind. I had snooped around. I took some videos, and those videos got wiped from my cloud and from every device I had. I took videos tracking these three-toed things. One had about a 16-inch track. One had a 14-inch track. It was always two of them. The 14-inch was always flanking us. and they were aggressive and pretty damn mean. I'd taken one of our quads down. I was texting a buddy talking about Dogman and Gugwe and everything. I'm trying to let him coach me up on all this because it's different. And they're aggressive, and I'm sitting on this quad. Quad's turned off. Of course, I'm pointed in the direction of getting the heck out of there. And I did just a little whoop, and immediately I get a response. Oh, this thing had to have been within 40, 50 yards of me. And I'm sitting on a quad, and it's at my 9 o'clock. And I'm texting a buddy at the time. I put my phone up, and this thing slowly starts crawling up the hill behind brush, and it's looking at me. This thing's got one hell of a wingspan on it. I mean, its arms are spread out, and it's crawling up the hill. I can't get a good look at its face, but it's right there and just staring at me. And I mean, this thing could just bust right through the brush. Dude, this thing wasn't 15 yards from me. I produce a pistol. I'm off the quad. I want the quad in between me and it, but I'm dead. I'm dead. It's got me. I'm focused heavily on this thing, and then sure enough, I hear the other one cross the creek. To thump, it lands, and here it comes. And I've got one moving in on me and one right there looking at me, and I've got a 10 mil pointed right at this thing's face. I'm right-handed. I switched to my left hand, extended it, tried to get back on the quad and turn this thing on with my right hand, and and popped it into gear. And I'm trying to drive with my right hand and keep my quad in the ruts of our trail. And I'm looking back, and both of them are following me. You can barely catch glimpses of them through the brush, but they are definitely following me. And I'm trying to get the hell out of the woods and come up by the house. My wife had just gotten home, and she's standing on the deck, and I'm coming up looking backwards on a quad, pointing a pistol at behind me, and she's like, "Oh crap, what has he gotten himself into now?" I pull the quad all the way up to the deck, and I get off. She's like, "What in the hell's going on?" Blah 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 blah. I'm like, "Come here." I'm like, "Let's just go sit down on the picnic table." She's like, "What is going on? What is going on?" I'm like, "Just keep talking to me. Just sit here at the table with me. Keep talking to me, just like we were talking now." Well, down there by that shagbark hickory where another one had fallen in, one had settled there. I think that was the bigger one, and the other one was flanking us. But we had a tree line. I had a big margin, um, a big gap to shoot if they broke through the tree line. I had a bigger reactionary gap if they were going to attack us. And I'm like, "We're okay right here. Just keep talking to me and don't raise your voice. Just be cool. Don't look every time you hear them." I hear them. They're down there. They're down there. I'm like, "Yeah, everything's fine." And she heard a couple of snaps here and there. And then everything got quiet. We sat there for a few minutes, and she's like, "Okay, nothing's going on. I'm done with this." She's like, "Stop playing Tarzan with these big ass monkeys and get your butt in the house." And I'm like, "But they're gone now." We hear the same kind of bark that I heard at the beginning. It was 250 yards away, across the ravine and up near a power line cut way behind our place. They had just left. They lost interest, and but my wife had had enough at that point. And those were the type threes. And they were more aggressive. They would follow you around. Of course, the others had followed me home too, but these were a little more aggressive, and they were around for months, probably months. And it seemed like the other family just kind of trickled back in, and but they gave me a much wider berth of operation. I stopped going into some of their areas and intruding on them. I was encroaching on their lifestyle, and I had done calls, and I'd sparked their curiosity, and who could have blamed them? Um, that was 100% my fault, out of my own curiosity, but I did not believe that those things existed and were here. Well, they were. Um, but after the type threes left, that nest was gone. It was shredded and scattered all over the place. It was gone. And it seemed like the type 2 family would just skirt around us, and we would still hear them. Last winter, my wife was driving home, and she saw a baby crossing the road, just trotting across the road on all fours, and I was so jealous, man. She got to see a baby. uh but everything calmed down and we kind of get along with them. But when we were hot and heavy and I was going into all these places, I was bringing people over, guys that supported SEAL Team 4 and a bunch of military guys and cops and I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on out here, and I wanted a damn fire team. But uh, everything kind of calmed down, and then I'm going to all these other places and kind of learning about behavior. I went into Oklahoma with Tim, and brought my son with me. My son went on a lot of these outings with me, and we were at a place called Brown Springs where a couple had died and some stuff had gone on. There was an old cemetery there, and my son and I were setting up. And we were just kind of watching the woods. My son had binoculars, and he spotted one at least 9 foot tall, built like a linebacker. Could have been a type one, but he was lean, broad shoulders, real skinny chest, big quads, built legs. He was standing inside a tree line, probably 150 yards across a swamp from us, and he was inside the tree line, just swaying back and forth, looking at us. And military buddy of mine was there. He's walking around with a 6.8 SPC, AR, and we had lots of protection. But this thing was just sitting there staring at us. And a guy came up and started recording, but I never got to see the video that he captured. But we had experiences in Oklahoma, in Iowa, along the Des Moines and Skunk River, of course, LBL in Kentucky. I think I sent you some audio. That at that night we heard that audio. It was a spooky place. About 2 a.m. I was with Tim and a bunch of guys, a bunch of good dudes. And Tim did a call, and I'd set a recorder down, and a big something responded, and two other big somethings responded, and then the coyotes just broke loose. Some of our buddies analyzed the audio, and the coyotes are registering, I believe, around 600 hertz. No, 1,200, 1,000 to 1,200 hertz, and the big guys were registering around 700 hertz. And some of our buddies said, "Hey, that's a good capture." I think I sent that to you. To me, it sounded a lot more canine than what I'm used to. So yeah, they're at LBL. I am not. I'm not familiar with Dogman. My buddies have sent me pictures of tracks, and people were tracking them all over Oklahoma. But I am not familiar with Dogman, but I have definitely been in Dogman territory. But I can't speak intelligently about them. I don't know their habits. I have picked up on a little bit about what the primates have done. But I am no expert. I'm still learning, and I've had the crap scared out of me, and once you see something like that, I truly believe that the only reason I lived is because those things let me live. I mean, we asserted ourselves and set security, and we moved through the woods. We covered ourselves, and tried to prevent any at least put up some resistance, but they still could have gotten us. I mean, a few of them might have gotten holes in them, but if you're dealing with something like 4 to 8 of them, and you've got 2 or 3 guys, you're smoked. You're done. I do believe that David Pilates said in the missing 411. If you look at that map of all the people that have come up missing in all these locations, and then you put a map of cryptid sightings over the top of it, they're identical. I do think they account for a lot of the missing people. Missing hikers, people in national parks, state parks. I do think some of them are responsible, but I don't think they're all good, and I don't think they're all bad. I do think, to a degree, they're curious, and some people have established decent relationships with them, but I'm not going to cook them pancakes and leave Skittles at the gifting rock for them. I'm not going to criticize anybody for their experiences and whatnot, but usually, I don't really do the social media thing, with cryptids and stuff anymore. But I've been in groups where some weirdo will just take his cell phone and he'll drive down the road and he'll record a video of a tree line and he'll just drive. And then he'll come back and make a video and he'll circle all these creatures that he's seen. And I'm like, dude, you have lost your mind. Wrong group for me. I'm out. Poof. Ninja smoke. I'm gone. And I don't really agree with people habituating these things and leaving Skittles and stuff out for them. Are you going to take them to the dentist? Um, I don't know if people want to leave toy cars or something shiny out for them and play little games and stuff. I think that's cool. Um, I, every once in a while I would leave a deer liver and just say, "Hey guys, we're cool. I'm not going to mess with you." Once I quit encroaching on their territory, we had less problems. But I also had to establish my own boundaries. Hey, I live here. I'm going to do this. I'm going to be doing this at night. I love to cook out at night, and we're going to play music and have people over and have a bonfire. And I don't want you big monkeys screwing screwing with our get-togethers. But now we're in a pretty good place. I can pretty well walk around anywhere out here and not have too many problems. Um, I'm still I'm still terrified enough that I'm going to be careful, especially when I go other places. And one of the things that I did realize throughout all of this is there's so much ridicule involved that like if you look at social media, how someone will post something and then you've got all these bots that jump on there and to counter them, ridicule, just to where people don't want to post anymore. They were doing the same thing with cryptids, right? And these things don't exist. There's no way they could. Ha ha ha! What a weirdo. Well, they do exist, and the government's lied about it. A lot of people have lied about it, and I don't agree with the government on a lot of things, but in some ways, I do think these things should not be screwed with. I think some kids are going to go out and get drunk and get themselves killed by doing calls and going into the wrong place at the wrong time. You catch a group of rogue males that are pissed off and they can tear you to pieces. I've heard some of the stories from investigations where people were folded over backwards, heads ripped off, arms ripped off, people shredded. And they are fully capable. Jiu-jitsu is totally out of the question. These things are huge. I mean, people say they're huge. You don't realize how huge they are until you see one standing there. I mean, I have had, without a doubt, sightings with people with me, right next to me, or people recording next to me. Without a doubt, those things exist. And then I have some good friends. Oh, well, I expected more out of you. You think it's just all in your head? I've almost gotten in fistfights with my friends over this. When I was terrified and reaching out for help, or and I don't like to ask for help. Who does? But I've it turned me away from the cryptid community too, because people join these groups and some little lady will post a stick structure, something looks good, like a twist, like they had bent it and cracked it, and usually it's pointing towards something of significance. And if you follow that direction, usually you'll find another marker, one way, a tree bow, a marker, something. And a lady finds it and she's so proud. And, I wanted like stick up for them, but all these people just jump all over them and treat them like crap. So I am out on the cryptid community. Screw them all. I don't want to be involved. I've been to conventions before. You'll never see me wearing a Bigfoot shirt. I'm not going to have stickers on my vehicle. I'm not going to draw attention to myself. And I don't want to deal with a lot of those people. People that come up to me and, oh, well, I went out with someone, blah, 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 and we heard a whoop. And I'm like, all right, cool. I don't even want to waste my time telling them that I lived around those things and that I've visited them in other places. I'm still going to go out. I don't like large groups of people going out and doing calls and whatnot. And I've gotten to where, man, if I really want to have an encounter, I like to camp in a really active spot and really do my homework and look at the topos and I like to camp out, cook some food, hang out, maybe go hiking a little bit without making too much noise. Now, if you do calls, I mean, anything goes. Who knows what you may have just started. So people need to be cognizant of that. I mean, if you're going to go out and do calls and crap like that, I don't know. I haven't heard of people having much success with tree knocks. Maybe they'll get an answer or something, but usually that is an alert to them that you're there. So I won't do tree knocks. Sometimes I'll do a little call here and there. We went to a place in Oklahoma with some of the guys from the old Bigfoot Outlaws group, and Tim and a bunch of people that are fairly well known. And It's a spooky spot, and I just did it was in the afternoon, still daylight out, and I did a little whoop, and maybe 60, 70 yards in just a little brush pile in the middle of a field, we got a response, and that was super cool. No incident. We ended up getting out of there, before dark. We ended up coming back at dark. Uh, of course, with Tim, he will drag you all over the place. Uh, under certain circumstances with certain people, I'll go out and maybe do a call or two and see. I don't want our calls recorded. Now responses we want recorded. I think it's so much easier to capture audio than it is that perfect video. I mean, up close, good lighting, everything. And no matter what you produce, people are going to tell you it's fake and that you're an idiot. So, well, I got tired of being treated like an idiot, and so I keep my mouth shut. Um, I got added to one group lately. It's some good people, some friends of mine, and I'll definitely go out with those guys. They're scattered around the U.S. I'm going to see some of them next month, but I don't talk in it. Um, they welcomed me to the group because a friend added me, and I'm like, well, so much for flying below radar. I responded, but that was the last comment I made, and I'm not going to make any comments on social media about this subject because I am done with it, and I'm pretty well done with a lot of people surrounding it. There are some really good people out there, and I don't consider myself a researcher. I have studied their habits or studied their behavior, but I've supported researchers. Tim Baker is a phenomenal researcher. He's probably compiled more information than anyone that I know, for sure. And the BFRO kind of did him wrong back in the day. I'm not going to get into it. I don't want to talk bad about anyone, but I still use the BFRO website, and I look at their sighting maps for each state, and I'd even check them out. And I went to a place near Merrimack, your area, and camped out at a place where a guy had some, or a guy had camped out and had some encounters that night, and my wife and I went hiking there and went and checked it out. So BFRO is a good resource, and I like listening to other people's encounters, but people that aren't full of it. They're not just taking a video driving down the road and talking about all the creatures they encounter every time they go out. I'm done with that. Um, Now, if someone saw a Bigfoot flying a UFO and you're convinced, okay, cool. I'm probably not going to have a deep conversation with them. I, uh, I can only speak from my experience, and from my experience, I cannot, I cannot say I can associate them with UFOs or orbs, or anything paranormal. I've only had flesh and blood encounters, and if they eat deer, they eat possum, they eat fish, they eat turkey. We've tracked all over the place. I found deer carcasses where we found out why their back legs were broken and their heads were caved in. They were grabbing deer and smacking their heads against trees, and nothing would touch those carcasses. If coyotes had gotten a hold of that bones would be scattered all over your whole yard. They were fully intact. Nothing would touch them. I'd find a possum sitting on a horizontal log that had fallen in the woods, and we'd find a possum with all the meat removed, and the hide was pulled all the way up over its head, and the meat removed meticulously. We would find fish scales stacked on the side of a creek bank, turkey feathers stacked at the base of a tree. Just uh, they eat food. They move through the woods, and I never thought that we had enough resources in this area to sustain a family of 8 of those things, especially as big as they are. But I get to thinking about it, and a lot of wildlife, and over the years, we've had a lot of dogs come up missing, which we associate to some of the mountain lion activity. But there's crops out here. There's livestock. Some of the livestock has been messed with. If you know what broken tails and broken ears alludes to, I'm not going to talk about that. That's kind of controversial. But Bigfoot have screwed with livestock, and there have been eyewitness accounts of that from people you trust. But In this business, your eyewitness report does not count for anything. If you had 10 people with you that saw a Bigfoot, people are still going to blow you off, and law enforcement will tell you you're freaking nuts. Now, if I said, yeah, I saw Miguel push that guy, he fell down the hill and he died. Well, Miguel, you're going to jail for the rest of your life. But if I said, Miguel and I saw a Bigfoot standing over there and there's his footprints, I took a picture of the footprints, here's a cast. You're full of it. No one will pay attention to you. So eyewitness reports mean nothing. And for the foreseeable future, they won't. You're never going to prove anything. That's why I don't care about evidence or presenting anything to the world. I think it's an absolute waste of time, and you're going to get ridiculed and pummeled and canceled and everything else. Because all of these know-it-all, highly informed idiots are going to run you into the ground. And so that's why I don't want my name or face associated with this. I don't want to be involved. Now I'll go out with people anonymously, but that's my stance on this whole thing now. I really would like to coexist with them. If I go out camping, I don't want to have problems. I definitely don't want to have problems at home. I don't want other people to have problems at home, and I don't want other people to shoot them. And I've heard a lot of people say they're so afraid to shoot them because they're so human-like. Well, yeah, they are somewhat human-like, but I've never had a problem identifying them as non-human. But I also didn't want to shoot them because most of the time when we were having an encounter, we were also getting flanked. And I knew if one went down, I was smoked. You're going to get smoked. And that's not how I want to go out. But I do respect the things. Well, I deer hunt too, and I respect deer. I love deer. I owe them a clean death. I hunt farms where people need them out of their crops. I'm doing farmers a service, and they're good friends of mine that I've known for years and years and years. And I try to respect wildlife. I try to live with them, and I intend to do the same thing with them. But I am much more cautious. I'm more cautious with them than I would be with a bear. And I'm not an expert on cryptids by any means. I have experiences with type 2s and type 3s, but the dogman, which some would call a type 4, the canines, I'm not real familiar with, but with some of the stories I've heard, I don't know if I want to be. I'm just laying it out as honest as I can for you, man.
All right. Well, Tango, I appreciate you for sharing those experiences with me. And they are certainly mind-blowing. And I've had many experiences, encounters myself, and I agree. These things aren't out there wanting to make pancakes with you. There's something serious about them. Like, I've been followed out of the woods, and it definitely feels like you're getting ready to be taken, and it's just a dark feeling. But of course, there's people out there that interact with them, gift them, and have positive experiences, which I have too. But there's just something off about it, something ancient, something really dark. And yeah, I would agree that the Bigfoot community is the worst. Like, it's almost like politics. Like, everyone in the community believes in Bigfoot, but they'll cut your throat when you're not watching.
Exactly. And well, those things are so unpredictable. You don't know what's going on in their world or what kind of encounters they've had with other people. And hey, I think a lot of people aren't responsible enough to own a damn cell phone and walk down a hallway or drive a car, right? So what are they doing out in the woods? What have they done to piss these things off? We've had, Brown Springs. Tim talked about an incident where a guy and his girlfriend had driven up into, it's on the Oklahoma-Texas border. They'd driven up to an area in Brown Springs, and they parked their car. Things got a little hot and heavy on the hood of that car, and they found the man with his neck broken. He'd been thrown, and obviously dead. He was thrown away from the car, was dead. And they found the lady disemboweled, and with a terrified look on her face, and they found bruise marks around her privates, which would suggest she was still alive while she was being violated. And due to the tracks, assumed it was 3 rogue males. And well, that kind of raises some alarms. Or the story in Kentucky where a guy had shot one, sighting in his 300 Win Mag, and he pissed it off while he was zeroing his deer rifle while his wife and brother-in-law were out hunting in the area. They down at the range. He had to work late that day, and something happened at the top of this quarry where he was shooting. There was a lot of blood, and his tracks led up around to the top of this quarry. A lot of blood, and his tracks paralleled barefoot tracks, big barefoot tracks. Further back into the woods, his rifle was found with expended rounds all over, and that rifle had been wrapped around a tree. The barrel was bent, the stock was broken, footprints all over the place, no sign of the guy. They walked back down to his truck, and there were barefoot tracks all around his truck. When they opened the door to his truck, he was folded backwards. The back of his legs were up against his back, and he was placed back in his truck. I know that's pretty savage, but that also speaks of some serious intelligence. They are incredibly intelligent. I don't know if they can fly a spaceship or drive a Mack truck, but they are incredibly intelligent and masters of their domain. I used to snoop and poop all the time. 5 of my buddies were snipers. Some of my buddies were U.S. Army Delta. Some of my buddies can snoop and poop and know a little bit about the woods. And at one point, I thought I knew something about the woods. I grew up, running creeks and hunting and fishing and being all over the place. That's why I figured, if growing up in Missouri and hunting and fishing my whole life, if they were out here, I would have known. Well, I got a huge slap in the face because I didn't know squat. It was pretty humbling. And like I said, I had to get a whole new education on the woods, and I view the world through an entirely different lens. I knew better than trusting the government on a lot of issues, but like I said, after this, I'm like, they've been lying to us for a long time. What else they've been lying to us about? I've worked for the federal government for 29 years now, in one way or another, and they are absolutely full of it. They've been screwing us over for a long time. I do have some hope that things are going to turn around eventually, but and I complain about the government a lot, but I'm going to skip out on this one because I don't think people should be out there screwing with these things. I mean, I think people need to learn how to deal with them, and if they follow the bear rules, keep your pets and your kids on a leash. Never let them out of your sight. Keep your food put up like you would make noise like you're in grizzly country. Make noise as you go. Wear bells or whatever. Have air horns, bear spray. I'm all for protecting yourself, being alert, paying attention to what's going on around you. I recently walked through a hospital, and medical staff, medical professionals, doctors, nurses are 8 deep, walking down the hallway, looking at their phones, and you have to turn sideways and get up against the wall, but so they don't run into you. That's how stupid people are. People have absolutely zero situational awareness, have no idea what's going on around them, and you scare the crap out of them. Oh my God! Like, dude, can you pay attention to what the hell's going on around you? You've got a patient coming through the door in a freaking wheelchair, and you're looking at your phone. Like, do they teach you how to walk down a hallway in med school, dude? I mean, that's kind of where I am with humanity right now. And it turns out those same people, they drive like that too. People on their phones driving around. I mean, you stop at a stoplight, you got to honk at people to get them to go now. Like, do you want to go home? Do you want to do what you're doing? Or we all just need to wait on you to get done screwing with your phone? You won't catch me walking across a parking lot or walking down a trail looking at my phone or driving. It's in my pocket. I can push a button if somebody calls me if they really need to talk to me. But I mean, good grief. Maybe I'm old fashioned, but I love living out here in the woods. We process our own wild game. We have firewood. If we get snowed in and have an ice storm, we've got a wood stove. We love the winter out here. We've got chickens, dogs, cats, and we've got we live in a beautiful area with, you've got some Ozarky rock formations and thick woods. I mean, this is a thick salad right now, and it broken up by pastures and livestock. It's just a beautiful area for that anyone can enjoy. But if you're raising children, you have to be incredibly protective for a wild dog, or maybe a meth head is gonna. Well, actually, about a mile from here, a farm had, well, it was one lady's grandkids were sneaking onto her property, and they had a meth lab out here. But my neighbors are not the kind of neighbors to be screwing with, and they got dealt with pretty quickly, and those guys are in prison now. And that's why I don't want the Bigfoot community out here, because they have to worry more about my neighbors than they do those things. I don't want people out here screwing with those things. Now, someone like Tim Baker has been here. I've had a couple other buddies here, but we're not disrupting them. And like even you, if you would stop by or whatever, yeah, you want to go for a hike, cool. The bug bites are horrible right now. Oh man, I told you earlier this week I got eaten alive. Oh, it's so miserable, man. I think the chiggers around here, I think they take shots of deep woods off. It doesn't bother them at all. But I'm not going to stop going into the woods. I still like to camp, but like if I go to LBL, I'm sleeping in my truck, and that's not enough to defend me. Those things have ripped my truck apart and shove it up my butt if they wanted to. It's but it's safer than being in a tent. And we used to sleep in the mountains in mosquito hammocks and stuff like that. And I just don't know if I want to be a burrito for those things or in a sleeping bag and get hauled off. Not that they would. We've been in LBL in places where, you're getting, if you run a thermal or an NV scope on the ridges around you, you're getting eye shine all night long and nothing ever happens. Not to say that it couldn't, but I think for the most part, most of those are peaceful and they're curious and opportunistic. There were some places we would go to where we'd just go slam the lid on a dumpster and then back off. And who knows what might happen. So I've had a lot of other encounters I didn't cover tonight. That I just kind of wanted to go over some of my timeline with you. And well, you asked how I got into it, and that's basically how I got into it. It's a crazy story. I've had the crap scared out of me, and I've had guns pointed at their faces, and I've been scared to death. I've been surrounded in the middle of the night. I've been chased out of the woods in the middle of the night, and a lot of the experiences, especially at first, were not pleasant. But how did I react? I reacted aggressively. Now, if I'm a little more calm, I don't have anything in my hands. I have positive body language and I speak softly. I have a much better chance of getting out. And I have two decent sized and pretty well trained blue razor pits. Just beautiful, amazing. They think they're farm dogs and they're spoiled brats. Those dogs don't protect me. They let me know when something's around. They're the house alarm. I protect my dogs, but they're a part of the family, and our kids are out of the house now, but our dogs are our babies, and I have to protect them every time we're outside. And it's always in the back of my head. It will never not be on my mind when I'm in the woods or in a rural area. If I'm in a big city, I don't worry so much about Bigfoot, but out here, every time I go outside, I'm armed. I have a pistol, two blades, a flashlight, and a reload on me right now, and that's pretty much standard.
Yeah, I completely understand that. So, which sighting did you get the best look at one of these creatures, and can you describe what it looked like?
Getting a look at the face was probably when we saw the alpha here, Big Daddy. He had a round head. For the most part, he was dark, pitch black, and had really like beautiful groomed hair. I mean, he looked neat and clean. Where the muscle man guy had looked kind of rough, like he's having a bad Def Leopard hair day or something. But he looked much more neat. but he had a barrel chest and a bit of a beer gut. A kind of a round belly. They don't have a defined chest quite like us. It's just a little bit different. But he had huge shoulders and big arms. I didn't get a real good look at his legs, but I could see how thick his lower half was. And their legs appear to be a little bit shorter than ours in comparison, and arms longer than us. And they appear to be top heavy, but their quads are enormous. And some of them, the thick ones have big butts. They got some junk in the trunk, man. uh, but yeah, he had a round head, flat nose, big eyes. That was yellow eye shine that day, and I think it has. It's a little bit different depending on the angle you hit him at with a light, and the light ended up being my best weapon. They view it as a weapon because every time you hit them with a light, or they cover their eyes or they just bolt. So, but yeah, I had a light. I had a Surefire E2 LED Defender, bright flashlight, handheld torch, right in his face with a 10 mil pointed right at his face at 30 yards, and he never came around the tree. He was never a threat to me. But yeah, and it seemed like they have huge hands, but their fingers might be a little bit shorter in comparison to ours, or say like a dog man. They describe them as having long, fingers. They have short, stubby fingers, and their thumb, from handprints and seeing their hand, rubbing against our tent, pushing against our tent, their thumb is placed a little bit lower than ours, I think. But big sausage fingers, big, huge, powerful hands. And the younger ones were skinnier and had more chimp-like arms. Where the bigger ones, they were a little more built. I mean, these things had some meat on them. The alpha out here, we call Big Daddy. He was built like a piece of plywood. I've heard people say that before, and like, you know what? Yeah, this guy was a big box. Just from the front of his chest to his mid back, he was wider than me. This guy, I don't know. I don't think quite 3 feet, but thick. Well, maybe 3 feet thick. It just, like I said, jujitsu is out of the question. I don't think you'll be choking one of those things out anytime soon. It just, when people say they're huge, people don't get the idea until they see them. Right? When they see one up close like that, the most scary people I've ever met would crap their pants and not feel like they had enough gun, even if we both had some serious hardware on us. I've never felt like I had enough gun, even I had 3 to 5 people, all of us armed. Like, man, if we're walking into an area and there's more than one troop or family unit of these things, you're smoked. You're done. They will get you. And I think they have gotten people. Some of the people that have told these stories, I have no reason not to believe them. Some of the people get a little crazy, and they've been out with people at Hanobia and Hanobi, and one guy's, oh, there's a Squatch over there behind that tree, and the guy's like, well, I'm going to, no, you can't. Yeah, like, dude, quit screwing around. Be serious about this. I mean, if you're going to call yourself a researcher, do what you can to provide what you can for everyone else. Like I said, I will help people, but I'm not going to write a book with my name stamped on it. I like helping people. If people are freaked out or whatever, yeah, hey man, can you come over and check this out? I think this happened, that happened. Yeah, I'll be there. That's happened, multiple times, and I love helping people. But you're not going to hear me speak at a Bigfoot conference. I'm not going to do what I'm doing right now. I know you've had encounters, and I prefer to discuss this with people that have seen them themselves. So I know you're not BSing me. And I know you've had encounters. We have parallel, our experiences kind of parallel each other. You've had very similar experiences, and so I know you're not screwing with me. And my wife and I, we're YouTube junkies, but we can't just live on the TV all the time. We're busy, but we try to catch some of your shows once in a while. You were recommended to us. We're like, oh yeah, so we check you out. You've had some good stories. We watched one where I think you had talked about some of your encounters. We're like, all right, this dude's cool. I can identify with you. I've been to some of these conferences and whatnot with some of these people. They're just a little bit whacked out, a little bit arrogant, and I'm not going to rub shoulders with a bunch of big egos and people that a lot of times I feel they're clueless. And I'll tell you right now, anybody that says they're a Bigfoot expert, unless they've been in an underground lab with the government and studied those things, or cloned them or whatever, then there are no Bigfoot experts. There are people with experience, and I consider Tim Baker Coonbo to be the closest thing to a Bigfoot expert there is, just because he's a wealth of knowledge and he's had so many experiences in so many different states, like 38 states now. I've probably been to like 6 states with him, and I owe him a lot. He's been a really good friend to me and coached me up, helped me out tremendously. But he's the closest thing I to what I would consider an expert on the subject. He has so much documentation and reports, and he's done so many investigations all over the place. And his experiences that he shared with me has helped me out a lot. I mean, he would drag me all over the place. We'd going down the highway and we would just talk for hours until we get to our destination, and then we'd go get into something. People don't realize, now Tim was a NASA scientist. He worked 7 shuttle missions. He worked for what was it, McDonnell Douglas or Lockheed Martin? But he's a dang rocket scientist, a total nerd. You can tell him I said that. He's razzed me on some podcasts, so I get to spur him a little bit and give him a hard time. But he had also worked military contracts, and he was deployed with operators, dropping sensors and things like that. I'm not going to talk about locations, but Tim is he's about to turn 70 years old, but he's a high speed dude and he knows his stuff. He's no joke. That's I didn't mind going out with him because he's got his act together, and to be honest, he is such a nice guy and will give you the shirt off of his back, but he's not really the kind of dude you want to screw with. I will say that. And his current wife, she worked for Secret Service, and they're a good couple. They're a good match. But yeah, Tim's a good old boy and will talk to anybody, and a great guy, incredibly helpful. But yeah, he's not the kind of guy you want to go messing with. I will say that.
Have you ever been out in the woods when Tim used the shofar to call in the Sasquatch?
Yes, I have. And he lit up the woods one time in Iowa. And that was at the beginning when he was first starting to mess around with it. And I remember him getting used to it. And he was struggling with it at first, but he started to pick it up. And then in places where I wasn't there, he had some pretty significant encounters. I wasn't there for some of those. But yes, now, yeah, we're gonna start getting into some interesting stuff. And now, I have no proof that these things are descendants of the Nephilim or anything like that, but there are some parallels there. And if they do respond to a shofar, that says something. That's pretty significant. I can't speak really intelligently about this, but some of our friends did capture some DNA, blood, hair, and saliva. It was turned over to some labs. This is from Oklahoma, a place that we had been to. And I think they had sent off some of these samples to universities, and it was either, no, we never got that, or yeah, I think that was lost, or it was, no, that was contaminated with human DNA. Be more careful next time. I think it was an independent lab, and it cost a grip of money. Independent lab was like, hey, where did you get this? 2 more chromosomes than us, human DNA at a nuclear level, and at some point, at some point there was a mix, and they may be a long lost relative or some type of missing link or something, and there is a possibility that they have some relation to the Nephilim of the Bible or giants. And we know the Smithsonian has recovered giant bones from all over North America and hidden them from us. That would be nice if that was released. But I really don't know that I want the Bigfoot subject to be released upon the masses, because I just see a huge influx of people in the woods screwing with them. But yeah, the shofar is an interesting subject. I can't speak really intelligently on it. Tim has his beliefs, and he's a really sharp guy, and I have no reason not to trust what he says. He's had some really interesting experiences with the shofar. Like, they were ready. Like, that was the call that they've been waiting on. And I'm not going to go too deep into that. I'd rather he told that story on an interview with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So why do you think the Sasquatch showed up to the back of your property or your backyard? Do you think they followed you? Do you think they were making their presence known when they'd crossed the road in front of you? Do you think that was on purpose?
Well, I think some of the times we were hiking into their territory, they followed us home, for sure, most definitely. Once I produced a call in the backyard, game on. And I've heard people say that once they know you know about them, the game changes. And that is absolutely correct in my experience. Hey, I got their attention first. That was 100% my fault. I encroached on their territory. That was my fault, not theirs. If I'd have kept my mouth shut and stayed my butt at home, I would have never known about them. I did learn a little bit. And in a lot of ways, I'm glad that I learned about them and I know how to deal with my environment. But in other ways, man, had I not been prepared for that, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Yeah, they definitely followed me home. And then after doing calls from like they say, never do calls from home, never do calls from camp. So some of the people I've been out with, they will drive out to certain locations. They'll have maps marked for locations they want to hit, and they'll set. Anytime like a hunter will go out in the woods and you set, especially at dark, anytime you go into the woods, the bugs, everything stops. The woods get quiet. Well, if you're sitting at camp and the bugs stop and the woods get quiet, well, there's a good chance there's a predator in the area. Now, we would go out into places and wait for the woods to wake up again. Where the bugs come back, the birds and the owls and everything, the woods are alive again. Then they would do a call and see what happens. You kind of need to get in and settle down and let the woods wake up around you, before you really let loose. I think going out and calling can disrupt their hunts, disrupt their business or whatever they've got going on, especially at night. I have had daytime encounters, but usually they're kind of laying low or just, farting around during the day. But at night is when they're most active. And then a lot of times we would hear that big, drawn out call, a two-tone kind of whoop sound, but a big, long call. You would hear that usually from 02 to 0500 in the morning. And I started to assume that was Mama calling in the rest of the troop. Everybody's done eating. It's time to go to bed. And she would call them in. You hear this big call, like I heard in Arkansas. I think that was at 2 a.m. And usually we would hear this, whether I'm in the Ouachita Mountains or in Missouri or other places. During that span, it's like the night is over. Feeding time is done. We've hunted all night. Now it's time to go to bed. Mama lets them know where she's going, and then you will hear them. You will hear other individuals moving towards that direction. I have heard that many times. I'm getting older. I'm not out late, partying in the middle of the night anymore, and I don't stay up that late. But a lot of times when we did, and we were camping, that's when you would hear that call. Now you can have encounters all throughout the night, and the night is going to be the most active time. But we would hear that call. I've got some record now, man. I've still got hours of audio to go through, but I just haven't done it. Like I said, I got pissed off at at the community, and I stopped posting pictures of structures we'd found and footprints and this and that. I don't have anything that's significant. I did have some pretty good pictures of tracks. Like I say, I don't cast them because I don't want that crap laying around. I don't want people finding a bunch of Bigfoot prints all around my place. And I'm not going to wear a Bigfoot T-shirt or put stickers on my vehicle or anything like that. I don't want to draw attention to myself with the subject. But I've had some decent videos of terrain, of stick structures, of tracking and decent tracks. Like I said, the three-toed tracks I was going after during the day. All those videos were wiped off of my devices, and I told Tim about it, and he goes, "Well, congratulations, you had something decent." Because he's had hard drives wiped, he's had people break into his house and leave him messages like pulling a network cable out of his tower or wiping his files. And I've still got some external hard drives, and I've got some little discs and stuff laying around and whatnot that I still have to go through. But I would like to recover, more audio, but I'm not really concerned with putting the next video out there to get ridiculed. I've had it. And I'll share stuff with people I know, people I trust. But you're a good guy. You've been in this game for a little bit. I'll share stuff with you. I'll send you that audio if you want to add that to this. That, like I say, I have a feeling I've got some Bigfoot audio, but that was a dog man. That was 3 dog man. In that, I thought I had sent that to you, but I'll send it to you, and maybe if you want to attach it to this, you can.
That sounds good to me. And maybe you did send it to me. I'll have to take another look. I have people sending me things all the time, but I'm thinking you did. But yeah, how does it make you feel knowing you've had all these experiences, these encounters, and knowing that we're being lied to? And like you said, there's the whole pareidolia thing going on in the community. It's kind of hard to be taken serious. And like you said, you could find the best tracks, have multiple witnesses, and you just get wrote off. How do you feel after having these encounters and sitting with all of this for a long time?
Well, some of it kind of rubs you raw, and you put in all this work just for people to slap you in the face, and that's what it felt like to me, is a slap in the face. And I'm still going to enjoy the outdoors. I'm glad I got an education on this. I can handle myself, and I can protect my kids or whoever's with me, or if my dogs are with me, I can protect them. I'm glad to know what I know now. Some of it was absolutely terrifying, and I don't want to have guns and crap strapped to me all the time and be paranoid. And it was terrifying at first, but I kind of developed a disdain for a lot of these know-it-alls that are just so highly informed because they follow the news and they know everything, and you're a freaking idiot for believing this or for believing that. Or I think a lot of the ridicule is all by design. If you're going to talk about cryptids, you're going to get eaten alive online. If you're going to speak a certain way politically, you're going to get eaten alive online, because all of these experts and know-it-alls are just going to shred you.
Oh yeah. I've had people just tell me that, like, they tell me all the time in the comments, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube, I haven't seen one piece of evidence since I've been watching your channel for years. And, that kind of hits me wrong, because I've shown like awesome tracks, tree structures. There's been so many people that have told credible encounters on my channel, whether they're lawyers, surgeons, state patrol, sheriffs, teachers, nurses, and it just doesn't make sense. It's a slap in the face. And then you could have Karen down the street say that you're a really bad guy and you did all these things, that you're a horrible person, and people like believe that, what I mean, without it, like, any evidence. But you show evidence with this subject, and it's just like you just get wrote off and made fun of.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah. It's tough. I definitely feel, I understand why you don't want to say your name, and post stuff and be part of the community, because it's tough. Like, I started this thinking like, eventually it'll get somewhere, but I've come to a realization that people have been doing this for years, and everything that I do, it's already been done, and it's just a repeat of what someone else has done. The ridicule just is like a cycle that never ends.
But a lot of people I know, they won't report anything. I know lots of people that have never written down a report for BFRO, and they
Hmm.
don't care to,
Yeah,
and they don't want to.
I've never done that.
They're
I've never
terrified to
gone on
talk about
like
it.
the Bigfoot mapping project or the BFRO. None of my sightings are on there. And I'm sure many people feel the same way, because I don't want people encroaching in my areas. I know that all these people
Yep,
from the Bigfoot community will just flood those areas and just start walking private property thinking they're going to see a Sasquatch.
exactly, exactly. That's right where I'm at now. Now, I try to give some people the benefit of the doubt. I don't want to deal with a lot of big egos and idiots. Like I don't like most of the Bigfoot movies. Or any of the shows you see on TV, they're never going to find anything. They're never going to show you anything substantial. Like, I saw a meme the other day someone sent me, and it shows all the people from finding Bigfoot, and it says, "Guess what? They didn't find Bigfoot." Right, right. They're not going to. They are not going to publish that. That is never going to hit mainstream.
Hmm.
Um, and I understand why. Um, that's going to open up a bag of worms for everybody if they do. Um, and on this on this subject, I've never said this before, but I'm going to go with the government on this one. And most people out there that have not been around these things, have not lived around them, and don't know anyone that knows how to deal with them, uh, they need to keep their butt glued to their phone or playing PlayStation. Um, if if they didn't grow up in the wood, well, you don't necessarily have to grow up in the woods. You have to have common sense and situational awareness. That's why I spent more time in the woods with military style people. Um, we call it snoop and poop. People that can people that know what they're doing, can pay attention, can be quiet, can pay attention to the woods. They know what's going on around them. I mean, we have to do that in the city too. You know, some of my best friends were pretty high speed, and like I say, people used to come out here and train. I'm a professional coach. Um, and I don't want to get into it. People figure out who I am, but I used to coach professional MMA, combatives, and a lot of military stuff, and shooting and competitive shooting, and a lot of my military buddies, whether they were on leave or had gotten out of the military or getting ready to go do contracts or whatever, they would come out here to train so that they can ruck with heavy gear on the trails. They can shoot and they can prepare for shooting competitions, stuff like that. And people you trust, people you train with. People you know how to move with, people that can do hand signals, people that can that know what's going on. If you make a move, they're reading your mind. I prefer to snoop with people like that. And I'll tell you right now, Tim Kumbo Baker is one of those kind of people. Um, I've been out with him quite a few times, and he was a really good friend of me, and we hit it off. And one day we're talking about military style close quarters combat, and he knew everything I was talking about. He was able to demonstrate uh, a lot of things that were taught to operators over the years. And I'm like, whoa, uh, Tim is a total nerd, but he's a badass too, man. Uh, and he knows the woods. He grew up in the woods. He's just a good old boy that grew up on a farm in Alabama. And that farm has a really really rich history, with his family, and to this day, they've gone through generations of those things. And well, he grew up as a child, learning from his grandfather and his father, and they called him catamounts and boogers, the booger man. My grandmother. had a farm when I was a kid, and she would say, "You don't go to that part of the farm because the buggers will get you." And we're like, "Well, Grandma also said all kinds of Southern things." So we're like, "That's just more of Grandma's, Southern slang." And you get up here under the booger light, so the boogers don't get you at night. That means when it gets dark, you better be up under the lights in the backyard, inside the fenced area. Uh, because my grandmothers grew up all throughout the South, and they called those things boogers too. The booger man, the boogeyman. That's where all that stuff came from. I I call them those things. But Tim Tim grew up around that, and he learned their vocalizations, and a lot of times he learned the responses to those vocalizations, and he learned how to act around him. His grandfather told him pretty much the same thing. You don't go past that tree. You don't ever let your sister do this. You don't go here. You don't go there. And he grew up around it. And when he was, deployed, or he was on military bases and this and that, he talked to, the security teams, and they had video of him. Now, he would have lost his job if he would have smuggled a copy of any of those videos out. But Edwards Air Force Base, where the shuttle landed, they had families of those things. And one family would live in this canyon, and there was an old guy, an old former Alpha, and they had nicknames for him, that would raid dumpsters and things. But they knew about him, and they would set security out in places. Launched those damn things weren't on video. He would go snooping around in all these places, well, base or this and that. He had Q clearances and on bases. So throughout his working career, he had been in so many places that he got to snoop around and use the knowledge that he grew up with. And now that he's getting a little bit older, he loves to share it. And I am so blessed that I didn't screw up or piss him off, and he has been just a really good friend to me. And I owe a lot to him for coaching me up. And he's the type that, like, he and I are close enough that he gives me a hard time. You knuckle dragger, and he loves to give me a hard time. But he'd be like, "Well, dummy, did you think about this?" I'm like, "Oh man." But he's very gentle about it. He doesn't beat me up too bad, but he loves to razz me and give me a hard time.
Mm-hmm.
But
you and Kimbo are both examples of people that work for the government, that know about these creatures, and that's proof that we're not being told the entire truth. And I'm glad, because when I heard Kimbo talk, he's tickled to death to talk about these things. You can tell he had a lot of information bottled up for many, many years, and he's finally got the opportunity to openly talk about this stuff. But I can't imagine how long he's kept these things a secret. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that he hasn't told people, not even you, because maybe he was sworn to secrecy. But who knows?
He does. He has had better. More clearances than I hold a secret clearance. He has held higher level clearances than me, and he would not divulge classified information regarding to my own field. He would not divulge that information, knowing that I worked on this or that or whatever, or I had been involved in this, that, or whatever. He would not. He would never break OPSEC. Now, he would say some things or allude to some things that would help me figure out stuff. But if I brought up a subject, sometimes he would just shut it down, and I knew that I went into uncharted territory. He won't break OPSEC as far as critical classified information is concerned. Mm-hmm. He has remained true. I'll give him that. I've messed with fiber optic cables and tested them at over a mile and a half, 2 miles, and this and that, and he wouldn't tell me how far that it was capable of going. Well, I know it goes from island to island under the ocean and this and that, but he would not give me figures on something as simple as that. And not to mention other things. He's worked on so many things above my pay grade. Um, uh, yeah, I'm still a GS employee, and I have I'm background checked all the time. I mean, they'll shine a flashlight up your butt and talk to so many people. Your background checks are extensive. I still hold clearances, and I'd like to continue that and get a federal retirement, and maybe when I retire and go work at Bass Pro, maybe I could talk a little bit more. But I don't do anything as cool as he did. I work on nerd gear for other nerds uh, in a federal facility, and I don't want to reflect poorly on my job or the people I work with. So I have to assume this stance right now. Um, but people like you, some of my close buddies, and people like Tim, yeah, sometimes I got to get this cryptid stuff out of my system. I was eaten alive by it, for a while, and my whole family was affected with it or by it, and my family was as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It's nice to talk with somebody who's had the same experiences, and like you said earlier, you can tell when someone actually really went through something. And of course, I do interview people that claim these things were like flying spaceships or walking around with trolls and nobody else could see them, only them. Strange things like that. But you can really tell when somebody had a serious encounter. I interviewed a guy named Jimmy from Kentucky, and you can tell that guy really experienced what he told on the channel. And yeah, he's one of us.
I would like to hear his encounter.
Yeah, I'll share that video with you. It's pretty
Cool.
terrifying for sure. But yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
when you're out in the woods, like, I don't know, I don't blame these shows or these channels for being like, what was that? What was that? Because like any stick break and any noise you hear could be, one of these creatures, and you have to take it seriously. Because I mean, for example, if you were like in Vietnam or in some country that was, in war, if you heard a stick break when you're in the middle of the jungle, you can't just write that off and be like, oh, it's probably nothing. That could be an ambush. So like with these creatures, if you're researching them in an active area, you can't just write off like a little stick breaking.
That's what I mean by set security.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, these things are sneaky.
Oh, dude, way better than us. Way better than us. I don't care if you think you're some super duper sniper, snooper pooper. Those things will smoke you. They will snatch you right up. Man.
It has something to do with couples, because you were telling that report earlier about the couple that got killed by these things. And David Politis had a story on his channel. He said a couple, they were walking down a trail in a national forest or wildlife area, and he said the Sasquatch came out, grabbed the girl, ripped her in half, and just walked off into the woods. And the boyfriend was just, in shock. But I mean, this is a report that David Politis shared. So maybe it has something to do with couples. I've heard of a lot of experiences where people are, smooching in a car deep in a national forest, and these things come up, and it kind of they're ticked off. So they definitely have a lot of testosterone, and I don't know, man, it's just scary.
And then the feds call it a bear attack, stamp it, and it's done.
Mm-hmm.
It's a bear attack.
Yeah.
Well, okay, look at Pennsylvania. They don't want people to know that there's a breeding population. Well, just like Missouri, they don't want people to know there's a breeding population of mountain lions in the state. Now, Pennsylvania, a government vehicle will stop traffic on one end, stop traffic on the other end, and another vehicle will come in and scoop up that mountain lion off of a highway after some poor lady just blew out the front of her car hitting it. They scoop it up, boom, and it's covered up. Well, the same thing has happened in national parks and federal property with these things. There are reports of instances where these things were hit by vehicles, and they called in a vet to assist. And they shut down traffic. They covered up. Oh, that was a bear. Or the deal in Kentucky where the guy was folded over backwards and killed and placed back in his truck. Bear attack. Bear did that. As frustrating as that is, especially if that was one of your loved ones, That's got to be devastating. But for the time being, we have to live with that.
Oh yeah.
Because if people know that a Bigfoot killed someone on this road in this national park, 1,000 people are going to want to go camp there, just out of curiosity. And and on one hand, I can't blame people for wanting to go investigate, and on the other hand, you don't know how idiotic you are until you have these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
You could get people really, really hurt. I mean, people are smart. They know everyone knows grizzlies exist, and so they take all these precautions for grizzlies. If you're salmon fishing in Alaska, you like some of my buddies, they take 44 magnums with them. They take this, they take that, and everybody with them has got this stuff with their waders on. If they're, they take all these precautions for bears because a grizzly bear is going to wreck you. You cannot outrun them. It's going to be absolutely devastating. I mean, your kids are going to watch you getting ripped apart. I feel bad for people that have had, these encounters and they don't get, the proper closure.
Mm-hmm. It was just a bear. And you're right. That's what they say. And unfortunately, people buy it. People are watching and looking at their cell phone when they're driving on the interstates, and they just believe what they're told. And I hate to say it, but authority figures, they know that people are stupid. I hate to say that, but I mean, you watch all these commercials and they got like these prescription commercials and people are just dancing and singing. That's what they think of the public. They think people are stupid. So they just tell people, oh, it was just a bear, knowing it wasn't.
There you go.
And people buy it.
Yes. And if you think outside the box, or you bring up something about a family member that died after a vaccination, your account gets closed down. You get censored. Especially like during COVID. If people still like fully hook, line, and sinker believe in all of the COVID protocol. After that, if you still believe in all that crap, I hate to say it like this. I'm going to be a little bit blunt, but you are brainwashed. That's what brainwashed is. If you can't think for yourself and see things for yourself, well, look, I found my dad dead, sitting in his chair after whatever. My father-in-law died 4 days after whatever. My mother-in-law died just like my dad did, and people got mad at me for not wanting what killed them. I fully believe I don't want to muddy up your channel. But I found my dad dead, and I have to go along and and play the game. And so now, with this subject and other subjects, as much as I hate to, I have to keep my mouth shut, man.
Mm-hmm.
It hurts me, but like I say, people close to me or friends or people I can trust, I can share certain information or just my take. This is only my take. I can only speak intelligently about my own experiences. I can't. Well, everybody views the world through a different lens, and I hate to. I don't want to be the one that pisses all over everyone's parade. Even with this subject, but I do want to encourage people to just regarding this subject. I want them to stay safe in the woods and follow all of the bear rules. I think that is a good step in the right direction, and pay attention. Use some freaking situational awareness. Learn what situational awareness is and pay attention. Yeah, not every little stick break is something coming out to kill you. Mm-hmm. But also if you're camping out, sometimes it's a concern. Now, if you're really intent on, exploring the subject and you're just camping out, sitting around the fire, if you have had a sighting and that stuff goes, as long as rocks aren't flying at you, remain calm. Talk to the other person without looking around at every little noise if you know they're around. And if they haven't rushed out of the tree line and tried to kill you, then relax. Just relax. Go about your business. contingency plans and your protocol.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the main thing is people just need to know that these things exist. You know, make up your own mind and make your own decisions. If you've seen one of these things flying a UFO, then more power to you. Heck, you know more than I do, but you just got to be aware that these things are out
Yeah,
there.
take me for
There's some serious stuff going on in the
yeah.
woods,
I'll
and
ride me.
yeah, and
If these Bigfoot out here have UFOs, I want to ride in one, man. In trails out here and side by sides. No, man, I want to ride in the UFO with him. And hope he loves to do some Mountain Dew commercial.
yeah. That is one strange thing that I've thought about. Like most of my sightings, my experiences were like in the 2019, 2020 time frame. And I did see some UFOs, never like with the Sasquatch activity, but in the same areas. But it makes me wonder because they like had these mandates pretty much where, you know, they didn't want people going out. You had to stay home and nobody was going to work because of the COVID whole situation going on. But it makes me wonder, like, if there's something going on out there, are they trying to like keep people locked up in their house so they don't figure it out? But I don't know, because at the same time, nobody was working and everybody was out in the national forest and all over wildlife areas. So I don't really know.
Well, I can't speak intelligently about UFOs, but I will say that Missouri is the home of the B-2 stealths. The stealth bombers can deploy anywhere in the world from right here in Missouri and drop a payload and come right back with two pilots. Now, a lot of the UFO stuff, look, I don't like talking about UFOs, but okay. If we're going to talk about UFOs, I don't think something is going to travel millions of light years across the galaxy and come here and have blinking lights on their freaking gear. You know, they're not going to show up with freaking blinking lights. You think they can't cloak? You can't think they do this and do that? Well, people say Bigfoot can cloak, but when I pointed a gun at their face, they didn't cloak. I have seen hair strands from them that are if you hold them up to light, they're fairly transparent and they reflect light around them. I will give you that. And I can't say that I've seen them cloak. I can say that I've seen them blend with their environment. Now, if you look at camouflage, pileated woodpecker. If you look at the camouflages that work, usually it's a lighter tone that blends in with or reflects light from whatever's around them. And I can say I've kind of witnessed instances of that, but I've never seen one fully cloak. You know, I can still. I love the Predator movies. The Predator is my favorite bad guy. I've never seen one fully cloaked, but okay, we can cloak vehicles, we can cloak tanks, we can cloak aircraft, and this and that. But if a triangle shows up with three lights on the bottom of it, I have a feeling that Lockheed or McDonnell Douglas or somebody like that built it. A lot of these craft that do crazy stuff or show up in a big city in Arizona, I don't think that is an alien mothership from the Andromeda. I don't, Project Blue Book and everything, with our government, that was more of a cover up than anything. You know, they may have downed UAPs, UFOs. They may have captured some of the occupants and this and that, but I know they've been reverse engineering it.
Yeah. So let's conclude what people need to be aware of with the Sasquatch. And if you had one thing to say to the listeners, what would you say?
I would say get out and enjoy the outdoors with your family. Go hunting, go fishing, go hiking, and enjoy everything that's given to us every chance you get. But be careful. Treat every trip like you might encounter a grizzly bear. Um, Protect your kids, protect your family. Stay alert and pay attention. But go out and cook good food. Get together with people. Listen to your music. Have a big bonfire. But pay attention to what's going on. And more than security and being a badass. Learn to live with what's around you. Uh, learn to be at peace with what's around you, and how to coexist with them, and how to respect them. Sometimes you have to set boundaries, and if anyone is having a problem with these things, people like me, people like yourself, I'm more than willing to give advice to them and help them. Um, but approach all of this and the outdoors with some common sense. You know, think for yourself. Look, nobody can tell anyone that that they didn't have this encounter, or everything is perception. If they perceive it went this way, well, then that's what's rattling around in their head. That's fine. I want people to be careful about what they do outdoor. Well, you got to do that in the cities too. You know, be aware, be observant. But you know, there's no reason that we can't go out and enjoy ourselves. But be careful of grizzly bears. Be careful of mountain lions. Um, that's my stance on the whole thing. There are people out there that can help you through this or advise you. I mean, the first time you see this, it's going to blow your mind. You're going to be terrified. You're going to want to call in, JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. Yeah, I mean, you're going to want air support. But there's an if you use a little common sense, and if you're not being, really, really threatened, there's a peaceful way to establish boundaries. And I I prefer that people do a little bit of homework, talk to folks, or reach out. Nobody wants to reach out for help, but you know what? Reach out for help. Um, I will talk to people, via email or something like that. If people are having a tough time with this, because I mean, if you've got them coming up on your porch and everything, that's crazy. But there are ways to deter them and then establish boundaries. But a lot of times we've done something to piss them off, and we have to realize that. Be cognizant of what they're doing, what their daily operations are, what they're trying to accomplish. And we can't interfere with that, and they can't interfere with what we're trying to accomplish every day. There is a peaceful way to coexist. Now, if you're dealing with just some crazy aggression, yeah, maybe we do need JSOC. Um, I was able to do it in a more peaceful manner, and I'm trying to just go with this, and I hope other people are able to find resolutions like my family did, and some of my friends. I had a great support structure and good people in my corner, and so I as tough as it was at times, um, in some ways grateful for my experiences, just for the education, so I can continue living my life. Man, I still want to go kayaking. I still want to go fishing. I still want to camp. I want to be able to take my dogs camping. I want to hang out with my family and have get-togethers and cook good food, listen to music. I still want to be able to enjoy the outdoors, but I have to do it in a peaceful manner, and not encroach on somebody else having to have their family get-togethers. You know what I mean? That's the only real advice I had. Just be careful, be cognizant of what's going on around you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I had asked you a bunch of times to come on the show because you didn't have any interest on going on a podcast, but I'm glad you did, because I'm sure this information will help other people who are having similar experiences like you had, and they don't know what to do or where to turn. So I do appreciate that, and thank you for coming on the show, man.
You're welcome. Thank you. None of us know how to deal with it at first. We've all been told these lies, and we've been fed a bunch of crap, and then you end up having to deal with something that doesn't exist, and that's going to blow anybody's mind. But you don't have a hotline, a tech support hotline to call, or really a website that's going to help you. I mean, some people can help, but there are people out there that can kind of give you a heads up or an edge, on dealing with these, I will. I don't want to get BS'd or messed with, but anybody within driving distance out here, I'd be more than glad to help or look at their situation or look at what their operation, what's going on, and assist. But it's going to mess a lot of people up. It's not all they're not all cuddly puppy dogs. That you can cook pancakes and give Skittles to. Hey, if anybody has that situation and it works out for them, okay, great, that's cool. I'm good with that. Go fly in spaceships with them, and it'd be an interdimensional traveler. That's great. Cloak, learn all that stuff. Yeah, take notes for the rest of us. But people are dealing with flesh and blood problems, or running farms, or they're concerned about their children and whatnot. Yeah, I get it. I get it. I'll help. I don't want a bunch of people contacting me, but if anyone truly has an issue, I'm more than welcome to help. And especially if someone like you or Tim, gets involved, or some of my other friends. Yeah, I have no problem with that. I don't want people going through some of the crap that a lot of us have. Being terrified, because it's going to blow your mind. You're going to view the world differently. You're going to lose trust in people, in the government. But also you have to understand the bigger picture, which in most situation I've dealt with, I didn't know the bigger picture. And sometimes we have to figure that out for ourselves. But there is a way to coexist, in the cities, or in the country, in rural areas, out in the middle of nowhere. There is a way to do this peacefully. And if you get signs that you need to get out, well, you're probably past time of getting out. You need to get out. Know how to recognize that. And if they're encroaching on your house, your territory, your farm, your whatever, well, you're going to have to change things. Something is going to have to change to where you're not pissing them off, to where they're comfortable with their day-to-day operations, and they can't conflict with yours. That's kind of where I'm at nowadays. It's taken me a long time to get that way. First, I was pissed off and pulling out guns, and now I've gotten to the point where I don't have to pull out a gun. If I have to, I'll pull out a flashlight. Oh, how you like that? Oh, okay, you're gone. All right, I'll see you later. I got to where the flashlight was my best weapon, and the show was over for the night. That's how we would say it, but there were times when we were blowing up tannerite, we were shooting guns, we were blowing up fireworks and everything just to scare them off, and it worked. But how much did I traumatize them doing all this? I'm just trying to look at things from their point of view, and what they're trying to accomplish and what I'm trying to accomplish, and how it conflicts. I don't know. I'm just getting older, man. I'm getting softer, and I don't want to piss off their babies. I definitely don't want to piss off Big Daddy or Big Mama, or some of the bigger beta males. But what we've kind of tried to figure out is that usually Mama is in a central location with the babies, and Daddy is usually not too far away. But then the younger ones in the betas are located basically as sentries around that location, and they will peel out kind of like the Native Americans did. Mama and the kids take off, and the brave stay behind to protect. Right? I've been in situations that, I was such a terrifying experience. I'm walking into the wrong area, and I am basically told to back off. And Mama takes off. You can hear Mama woo, every 45 seconds to a minute. Woo, and she's moving directly away from me. And I know she's got those babies with her because I've seen the tracks around that location. And but the big boys stay behind to take care of business if business is necessary. That's just my take. I have some recordings I've tried to dig up. Since talking to you, I've tried to dig up some of my old stuff, and a lot of it's missing from my clouds and some of my network drives. And I think learning to read the situation is more valuable than any gear you can have. Same with people.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. And yeah, you shared a lot of valuable information, a lot of experiences, and some really interesting encounters. So that was really cool, and I'm glad to have you on the podcast. I think it'll be one of my best shows yet. So I appreciate it, and I know it's going to help out other people, and I hope it does. Hopefully, someone who's
That's the
having
only
these,
reason I'm doing it.
yeah, hopefully someone who's experiencing this just happens to come across this podcast, and they'll know they're not alone.
But that's really all I care about, is that people develop an understanding. I'm scared for a lot of people, man. Like, I'm getting older, I'm getting soft. I hope people can develop an understanding and you know deal with this in a much more rational way, and learn to develop a different perspective than what we're given growing up. Um, because there are things out there that we don't understand. Um, I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. If there are a lot of other experiences I had, I think much detailed stuff that dealing with those things and being terrified, and everybody wants to hear all the scary stuff, and you crapping your pants, or just they everybody gets off on the gore, but I want people to be able to enjoy the outdoors and intelligently. I don't want people to get eaten by grizzly bears or wolves or anything, or freaking meth heads sneaking onto your grandma's property with a meth lab. I just want people to pay attention to what's going on out there. And like I said, I don't want people contacting me, but I've helped people in the past, and I'm going to do that until I'm gone. That's kind of where I'm at nowadays. And you take a very rational approach to this, and I know you've had experiences. You know what's going on. I mean, you had those things running around your property and smacking your house, and you had 2 dogs come up missing. I mean, that's terrifying. Now, I would get pissed. Anybody messes with my dogs, I will burn down this whole state, dude. Or my kids. But there are ways to avoid that, just by how you carry yourself or handle yourself. Just like us, being able to read a situation. If you and I walk into a bar and there's 4 big scary bikers sitting behind us, we can feel them staring at us on the back of our neck. Those are vibes, right? They're projecting negative energy towards us. Now, we do the same thing in the woods. If you look at a deer intently, I want to kill this deer. How many times would a doe or a buck look up at you? If you haven't cleared your mind and stopped the shakes and calmed yourself down and get ready to take that shot, how many times has a buck looked up at you when you're trying to draw back your bow, when you're trying to get your rifle ready? Kuhnbo referred to this as the Zen of hunting, and many martial arts systems have tried to dealing with negative energy projected towards you, and so you have to address that before it becomes kinetic. And I think that is possible with these things, where if you get to something, it's time to leave. If they see you leave, you're no longer. If they see you assume a positive posture in a frequent area for humans, where people are swimming and fishing and hunting and carrying on. If you're not projecting negative energy, or you're not a threat. If you're not a threat, it's much easier to get out than it is if you're pulling guns and being threatening. Sorry, I'm just rambling at this point, but
No, you're right. All right. Well, Tango, I appreciate you for sharing the information and for coming on the show. And yeah, I'm sure your wife, your family, and your dogs, they're waiting intently on you. So Yeah, just keep in touch with me. We'll try to get out in the woods and you can share more experiences with me personally. And I certainly look forward to it.
Oh, absolutely, man. I've got a smoker and a bunch of outdoor cooking stuff. Man, we go camp out, cook some food, maybe go fishing, uh, and yeah, we see what kind of trouble we can get into someday. And yeah, when you get a chance, especially when it cools off a little bit and we have less bugs. Oh yeah, man, I'm totally game. We go out and let you uh, get your drone going and see what kind of trouble we can get into.
Yep, that sounds good to me. And if you experience anything else in the meantime, definitely let me know, okay?
Copy. It was good talking to you, man. If you need anything, just holler. I'll be in touch. I'll text you once in a while and irritate you.
That sounds good. I'll do the same.
All right. Good talking to you, man. You take care of yourself.
All right, you take care, and I appreciate you. What Tango shared tonight isn't speculation. It's the result of years of repeated encounters, physical evidence, and first-hand observation. Whether you're a skeptic, a researcher, or someone who's had experiences of your own, stories like this force us to ask difficult questions about what's really out there and how much we truly understand about the wilderness around us. I think it's pretty cool that Tango contacted me after hearing my experiences and he knew that I was telling the truth. And I thought the same thing about his experiences with these creatures coming around his house and being on his property for many months at a time. I just felt like I was there when he described the creature on all fours crossing the road, or the bipedal creature that crossed the road, and the beings that were outside in the yard. That's just freaky because it reminds me of my own encounters, and I thought that was really cool to hear. If you've had encounters similar to Tango's, or if you've experienced unexplained activity in the woods, you're not alone, and this channel exists so those stories can be told without ridicule. Thank you to Tango for trusting this platform and sharing his experiences. This is Sasquatch Theory. Stay safe out there and pay attention to the woods.